Road Less Taken is the opening to Persona Q2 and my favourite opening in the entire series, so I thought that I would take some time to create an analysis of the different scenes and the possible meanings behind them. A lot of this info was provided by Takashi Kojima, who worked as the animation director, supervisor, key animator and storyboarder on Persona Q2. I'll link the article in the description below because I found it really interesting and think that it's worth giving a read. Persona Q2's opening feels so unique while also working well with the 3 different Persona games. Road Less Taken has more cuts and a faster tempo than the other openings, and also gives the idea that we're seeing a trailer with all the different movie theatre effects, since Q2 does take place in a theatre. When talking about the idea and storyboarding behind this is what Kojima had to say. At a meeting with Atlus, they said that I could create the opening however I liked, so I watched the other Persona openings and then deliberately tried to distance myself from the existing works while retaining their unique traits. If I referenced the existing works too much, then there wouldn't be any improvement over them, so I went for a different approach. Thus, it became something more like a music video. I also intentionally increased the number of cuts, making for a nice and fast tempo. The melody was catchy too, so it was easy to work with, so when I showed Atlus the storyboards, they were even able to clearly understand the movie's tempo. Another reason I love this opening is because we get to hear some of the main singers from the games all singing together, which I think is just great to hear as a fan of the series. The opening starts with Joker sitting on a red bench, which we'll come back to at the end, and then gives us short scenes of each of the main characters from Persona 5, ending with Akechi spray painting on the screen. We get a few shots of Shibuya at night time, and shortly after we see Joker walking down what seems to be the underneath of a pathway of a bridge with graffiti behind him. While maybe not a super important detail, Kojima said this. At the beginning of the song, Akechi spray paints onto the screen, and then when the P5 protagonist is walking forward during the first verse, you see this graffiti art beside him. I bet Akechi drew that. This is another small detail, but we can also see the colours of the 3 prominent Persona games, red, yellow and blue, on the pillars to the left. We also get a shot of graffiti showing off the Persona 5 cast in their Phantom Thief attire, giving us a look at what they would look like in the metaverse compared to what they normally look like shown in the scene before. The transformation is also shown with Joker, where he walks backwards behind a pillar obscuring the viewer's vision and then comes out of the other side as a Phantom Thief in a different looking area, likely the metaverse. In the next scene we get to see the Persona 3 cast being shown on a movie theatre screen with an old film reel effect on top. The camera slowly zooms in, eventually removing the movie theatre curtains from view, and then we get a new scene showing the different Persona 4 characters. You may notice that in these scenes the protagonists of 3 and 4 are somewhat in the distance and they can't be seen too well. This was done because they get their own individual scenes later on and there wasn't enough time to give everyone their own time in the spotlight. Which, while sad because I would have loved to see each character with their own scene about them, I do understand the reasoning for. Eventually we get to see Kamoshida Man do a rapping verse in the middle of the song, which feels a little out of place, because it is. Kojima explained it as a funny light-hearted cut instead of keeping a serious tone throughout the entire song, so while not too important, it still is a fun segment to cut between the more serious visuals. Now we get to see the protagonists shine as they were usually in the background of their game's cast segments, apart from Joker, who had been front and centre a lot. We see a simplified and yet really colourful depiction of them summoning their personas, showing the different ways the mechanic works between the games. The main colours used in this also reflect the colours of their games, with Makoto being surrounded predominantly by blue, Yu by yellow, and Joker with red. And then we get to see these personas in action, giving us a look at their appearance and abilities. For the last of the protagonists, we get to look at Kotone from Persona 3 Portable and get to see her fighting style and weapon of choice. I think the reason we get more time with her here is because of her importance to the game as one of the protagonists, as well as not having as much time on the screen as the others. She's also shown to be standing alone in the scene, which is because in the game she gets transported to this new world all by herself and is completely disconnected from the characters from her own timeline. In the game we see that she recognises the characters from 3, like Yukari and Junpei, but they don't recognise her because for them she doesn't exist in their timeline. Next is a short segment showing off 2 of the new important characters in Persona Q2, Nagi and Hikari. Nagi is shown in the cinema, which is where she is first found in the game and explains herself to be the curator of the cinema, while Hikari appears in the same room but with a projector shining a light on her, which is because of the importance of movies and cinema in her life. One of the most important people to Hikari is her father, who was a projectionist and would show different movies to Hikari to make her happy, and these movies were one of the most comforting things for her in life when she was struggling. This light is the same thing that she's holding in the next scene, because these movies are one of the most important things to her and what she holds on to the most, so she holds it close and dear, trying to protect it from all the negative parts of her life. We see an eye opening and a film reel going off, showing multiple eyes, which cuts to a scene with Hikari in a red room full of piercing eyes watching her, completely trapping her without an obvious way to escape. I think that the meaning behind this is best said by Kojima himself. I was told that the theme of the game was peer pressure, so for the hook I put Hikari in a red background, with eyes opening all around her, followed by her falling from a building. The way I envisioned it was a shocking scene where she falls from the building to escape from the pressure, only to be engulfed in flames and disappear on the way down. Then we see her again in a blank space and with different flames, blue, yellow and red, appearing before her, representing the different protagonists of 3, 4 and 5. But I think that the meaning of this, again, can be best said by Kojima. After that, she appears from the flames in a blank white space, showing that she's freed herself from the peer pressure. In this cut, the P3, P4 and P5 protagonists appear before her one after the other, which represents that Hikari is also determined to move ahead, just as the protagonists were. The focus then shifts back to the Persona 5 characters Akechi and Joker. The reason we see Akechi standing on the rooftops compared to Joker running and jumping around is because Kojima wanted to show their rivalry. The opening movie is centered around the Persona 5 characters. In my mind, when I think about the P5 protagonist moving about, I want to have Akechi quietly standing still in opposition to that. Rival characters have a stronger presence when they're calm, rather than running around. On the screen with the Persona Q2 logo, the background changes colours to yet again the main colours of the games, a red colour, a yellow colour, and a blue colour, but now we also get a pink colour, likely to represent Persona 3 Portable and Kotone. A new morning light then shines on Shibuya, and Joker's in front of the cinema doors, dropping his mask as it breaks apart into butterflies, which was likely because Kojima was inspired by Persona 1 and 2, which Kojima admitted he played and enjoyed back in elementary and middle school, which shows the influence these games had on him. Finally, we see Joker standing up and walking away from the same red bench that we saw at the very beginning of the opening, with the 4 colours representing Persona 3, Portable, 4 and 5 splattered on the wall behind him, showing that it's their story too. I hope you enjoyed this video, as I had a lot of fun making it, as Persona Q2 is one of my favourite games, and I had fun looking at the opening and interviews about the ideas behind it. If you want to play Persona Q2, which I do recommend if you are a fan of 3, 4 and 5, it might be worth getting, especially if you're watching this before the 3DS eShop closes. See ya.